World War I tactics and strategies. Fake trees. Fake trees were placed in no man's land. The trees' goal was to act as an observation post without the enemy knowing. They were so effective even the French and Germans started using them. Fake trees were built using steel and actual bark off of real trees to make them look realistic. After all, German soldiers would be looking at these with telescopic sights, so they needed to look as realistic as possible. The trees' conditions were cramped, small and tiny. There'd be enough rations to last about a week. There could be snipers' nests, observation towers, or even communication towers with carrier pigeons. The task of operating the tree was a simple one, but it wasn't without its flaws. First of all, there was no room for gas masks, so you were exposed to chemical gas, there was nothing you could do. Second, if you tried to leave the tree at night, German snipers were waiting for you. The cramped conditions inside the tree caused many men to get claustrophobia. 1 to 2 men could be inside this tree with you, so it was a very dangerous job. Especially when you're in the middle of no man's land with shell craters everywhere. With dead bodies, dead animals, rotting flesh, barbed wire, snipers, machine guns, landmines and chemical gas. And these trees could also get damp. That could result in illness or even trench foot. However, because of this, eventually camouflage would be invented. Fake trees were actually so successful that in one instance a German soldier hid in a fake tree during the Battle of the Somme when the British took the trench. He was in there for 2 days until he ran out of rations and was forced to leave in the middle of the day. He was captured by British soldiers, but the entire time at night he had been sending carrier pigeons to his forward operating base, telling the German High Command where the British were. And the French used them. And when the Germans captured their trench, the French soldiers stayed inside of them for 3 days before getting captured. Some even evaded capture. And some were not discovered until the war ended. Some fake trees are still being discovered today. The most recent instance was in France in 2012. Bayonets. The reason I come back to this topic is for multiple reasons. And last time I forgot to mention how many bayonets there actually were. Because during the First World War and the Second World War, the British Army used a bunch of old bayonets. Some bayonets even date back to 1800 on their modern rifles. The reason this was done was to save on cost. Depending on which division, depended what bayonet you got. The second reason is for very bizarre instances of bayonets. Even though every soldier in World War I carried a bayonet, some soldiers decided to step it up a notch. With this piece of kit that I'm about to show you. This bizarre piece of kit is called a dueling cap. The idea was that when enemy soldiers were running into your trench, you could point your head towards them and scare them off or even kill them. It was a bizarre idea, not very many were made. Thankfully. And those that were had several flaws, like the bayonet snapping, or exposing the soldier's head to snipers. Chlorine gas. Chlorine gas was made by the Germans used on a large scale during the First World War. So far remains one of the only wars where chemical gas was used in an immense scale. Every soldier had a gas mask, but not all of them did. Poisonous gas at the time was very deadly. It could leave you blind, give you permanent asthma or chest problems, or even heart attacks and medical conditions. It could even cause your rifle to corrode, and your machine guns to corrode. This was used a lot by the Germans to stop the enemy from firing back at them. And the gas had more of a psychological impact than the actual death rate, resulting in a lot of soldiers getting PTSD or shell shock. It wasn't just people that had to worry about the gas. Even animals like carrier pigeons, horses, dogs and eagles, animals that were used in warfare at the time, had to have their own homemade gas masks. These gas masks protected the animals that worked for the cavalry and other different divisions that required animals. Medics even needed gas masks. If you could not have a gas mask at the time, or before they were invented, you just had to deal with as a pad covered in either animal or human urine. Sometimes even alcohol or vinegar to stop it from sticking to the pad. This would protect your inner organs, but it wouldn't protect your skin from itching or your eyes from itching. It would be just like tear gas. The Germans were the first ones to invent gas masks for them and their animals. The reason for this is because when the Germans used it, the wind could always change direction and go into the face of their own soldiers, which happened multiple times. Soon gas masks became a requirement for all armies around the world. Trench runners. Trench runners were used by the British. When carrier pigeons and telegram were not made available, a man had to do it. Trench runners were the most dangerous jobs of the war. Trench runners were lightly armoured and only carried a 6-shot Webley revolver. The job of a trench runner was so dangerous that they were told, after they fired the first 5 shots, to use the last shot on themselves, or stab themselves with their own bayonet to avoid capture. Trench runners were extinct, wearing a red armband or having a red band around their helmets to identify them. Even worse, the job didn't pay anymore, it was voluntary. The British trench runner was the most dangerous job by far of the war, running in between trenches, enemy and allied lines, in broad daylight while the Germans are shooting at you, with snipers and machine guns, artillery shells going off above your head. Walking through muddy no man's land full of shell craters, dead bodies and dead animals, making your way to your objective. Make it even worse, at the time asthma was not an illness or a disability, it was unknown at the time, which meant many trench runners suffered from asthma and ended up dying right there on top of the plate, because they had no inhalers at the time. Often high-ranking officers were asked to do it, but they would just pay a poorer soldiers to do it for them, who either needed the money or wanted to rank up in the British Army, which at the time was very pay to win. Qualifications for a trench runner were simple. You had to be an active soldier in the British military. You could be from any crown colony. You need to be short, able to run fast, and it would also ask if you had any experience in sport like cricket or rugby or football. You didn't get paid, but you did get paid when you left, like better accommodation, but for a lot of these soldiers that never happened. Injuries were common of course, like running into barbed wire, but somebody had to do it. Often trench runners used stuff like bikes, but most of the time preferred to run on foot, because no man's land was covered in shell craters and it was too easy to get tripped up or shot off the bike. The soldiers in the British Army gave this many nicknames, like the suicide job, or dancing with lead, or one man surrounded. The job was so deadly that today in France there's even a special monument dedicated to just trench runners. Trench runners often operated in groups of 1, 2 to 3. Often only one would carry the intel to trick German snipers. These men would not be close friends. The reason for this is because if one of them died, the other soldier shouldn't show any sympathy and should keep on running to complete the objective and run back, and fight off the enemy if need be. The trench runners were also used to kill deserters, or even executions during firing squads.